The ship was cold. Ambassador stood near the viewing window and watched the massive space station grow larger as they approached. Behind him, Commander checked her uniform for the third time. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The Galactic Council Station was the largest structure humans had ever seen. It floated in the darkness between stars like a metal flower with 1,000 petals. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went from its many ports. Some were beautiful. Some were strange. All of them were bigger and better than anything Earth had ever built. Was 53 years old. He had gray in his hair and lines on his face from years of hard work. Before the aliens came, he had been a teacher. Now he carried the hope of 8 billion people on his shoulders. It was a heavy weight. Was younger, 31. She had been a pilot before the military promoted her to commander. Her hands were steady and her eyes were sharp. She did not smile often these days. None of them did. Their ship docked with a soft sound. The airlock opened and they stepped into the station. The first thing noticed was the smell. It was clean, almost too clean, like a hospital, but different. The second thing he noticed was the size. The hallway stretched out before them, so wide that 20 humans could walk side by side. The ceiling was far above their heads. This place was not built for beings their size. An alien waited for them. It was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black, like deep pools of ink. When it spoke, its voice came through a small device on its chest. "Welcome to the Council Station. I am Guide. I will take you to the Great Chamber." Bowed his head slightly. "Thank you." They followed the guide through the station. Other aliens passed them in the halls. Some walked. Some floated. Some moved in ways that could not understand. Many of them looked at the 2 humans with curiosity. A few looked at them with something else. Pity, perhaps, or amusement. Tried not to think about it. The Great Chamber was exactly what its name suggested. It was a massive room, round and tall, with seats rising up on all sides like a stadium. Hundreds of aliens sat in those seats, representing species from across the galaxy. At the center of the room was a platform where speakers could address the council, and were led to this platform. They stood there, 2 small figures in the middle of all that space, surrounded by beings who had traveled between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. The high speaker sat on a raised throne at the far end of the chamber. It was a creature of great size, with rough gray skin and 6 eyes arranged in a circle on its face. Its voice was deep and slow when it spoke. "The Council recognizes the representatives of Earth. You may speak." Stepped forward. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was steady. He had practiced this speech 100 times. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, "I am Ambassador of Earth. I come before you today to ask for your help." He paused. The chamber was silent. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him. 3 years ago, ships appeared in our solar system. We did not know what they were at first. We tried to communicate. We sent messages of peace. They did not answer. Instead, they attacked. His voice grew harder. "They destroyed our colonies on Mars. They killed millions of our people. We learned later that others in the galaxy call them the Void Swarm. We learned that they have destroyed many worlds before ours." He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. "We have fought them. We have lost many battles, but we have also won some. Our people are strong. Our spirit is unbroken, but we are running out of time. The swarm grows stronger. They are coming for Earth itself." Took a deep breath. "We ask the Council for aid, ships, weapons, anything you can give. We are not asking you to fight our war for us. We only ask for a chance to survive." He stopped speaking. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly, sounds began to rise from the seats. It took a moment to understand what he was hearing. It was laughter, soft at first, then louder. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were laughing at him. His hands curled into fists at her sides. Put a hand on her arm, telling her to stay calm. The high speaker raised one of its massive arms, and the laughter faded to quiet chuckles. Ambassador, the high speaker said, your species is young, very young. You have been in space for less than 200 years. Your ships are slow, your weapons are weak. Your people live for such a short time. What is it? 80 years, 90. Some of us live longer, said quietly. It does not matter, the high speaker continued. You are children playing at being adults. The void swarm has existed for 10,000 years. They have destroyed civilizations that were old when your species was still climbing trees. More laughter rippled through the chamber. A different alien spoke up. It was covered in bright feathers, and its voice was high and sharp. Why should we waste our resources on a species that will be gone in a generation? Even if you survive, you will forget. Your lives are too short to remember. We remember, said suddenly. Her voice was cold and clear. We write things down. We pass knowledge to our children. We do not forget. The feathered alien made a sound that might have been a snort. How touching. The high speaker leaned forward in its throne. The council has heard many petitions like yours over the centuries. Small species, weak species, asking for help against forces they cannot defeat. Do you know what we have learned? Waited. We have learned that some species are meant to survive and some are not. The strong rise. The weak fall. This is the way of the universe. If humanity cannot defeat the void swarm alone, then perhaps humanity is not meant to continue. The words hung in the air like stones. Felt something cold settle in his chest. He had known this might happen. He had prepared himself for rejection. But hearing it spoken so plainly, with such casual cruelty, was different than imagining it. She looked back at him. In her eyes he saw anger, he saw hurt, but he also saw something else, something hard and bright like a flame that refused to die. He turned back to the high speaker. I understand, he said. His voice was calm. Thank you for your time. He did not beg. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice or make threats. He simply turned around and began to walk toward the exit. Walked beside him. Behind them, the laughter started again, louder this time. Some aliens called out mocking words. Others made sounds of amusement in languages did not know. He kept walking. The distance to the door seemed very long. Every step felt like a mile, but did not hurry. He walked with his back straight and his head high. Beside him did the same. They did not look back. When they reached the door, paused for just a moment, he could feel all those eyes on his back. He could hear the laughter echoing off the walls. He thought about his home. He thought about the blue skies of Earth and the green mountains and the oceans that stretched from horizon to horizon. He thought about the people waiting for him there. 8 billion souls who were counting on him. He had failed them. Or had he? Stepped through the door and it closed behind him. The laughter cut off like someone had pressed a button. In the silence of the hallway, he finally allowed himself to breathe. Spoke first, what do we do now? Was quiet for a long moment. Then he started walking toward their ship. We go home, he said, and we fight. Inside the great chamber, the laughter continued long after the humans had left. Aliens of every shape and color shook with amusement. Some wiped tears from their many eyes. Others slapped their tentacles or claws against their seats in delight. The high speaker did not laugh. It watched the door where the humans had disappeared, its 6 eyes blinking slowly one after another. There was something in its expression that might have been thought, but no one noticed. They were too busy enjoying themselves. A creature made of living crystal spoke up from the upper rows. Its voice rang like bells. Did you see how small they were, like insects, and they came here asking us for help? They were brave, another alien said. This one looked like a cloud of purple gas held together by invisible forces. Stupid but brave. I almost felt sorry for them. Sorry? The feathered alien from before made a harsh sound. Why should we feel sorry? They brought this upon themselves. If they had stayed on their little world, the swarm would never have noticed them. But no, they had to reach for the stars. They had to pretend they belonged up here with the rest of us. More laughter followed these words. In a quiet corner of the chamber, a small alien watched in silence. Its name was something that human tongues could not pronounce, but it thought of itself as. It was old, even by galactic standards. It had seen many species rise and fall. It had watched civilizations bloom and die like flowers in a garden. Did not laugh. It remembered another species long ago that had come before this council. They had been small too, weak, young. The council had laughed at them as well. They had refused to help. That species was gone now, erased from the universe as if they had never existed. Still remembered their music sometimes. It had been beautiful. The high speaker finally raised its arms for silence. The chamber slowly grew quiet. The matter of the human petition is closed, the high speaker announced. The council has more important business to discuss. The trade routes in the eastern spiral need attention, and there is the matter of the mining rights on. Stopped listening. It was thinking about the human ambassador, the one called. There had been something in his eyes at the end. Not defeat, not despair, something else. Had lived for 12,000 years. It had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who had stopped asking for permission. Far from the council chamber and walked back to their ship in silence. The hallways of the station seemed even larger now, even more empty. Their footsteps echoed off the walls like small, lonely sounds. Guide walked ahead of them. The blue-skinned alien had not said a word since they left the chamber. Perhaps it felt embarrassed. Perhaps it felt nothing at all. Could not tell. They passed other aliens along the way. Word had spread fast. Some of them pointed at the humans. Some of them laughed. Others looked at them with expressions that were hard to read. One alien, a tall creature with scales like green armor, stepped directly into their path. It towered over them, nearly 3 meters tall. Its yellow eyes looked down at them like they were bugs. So, it said, these are the humans who thought they could ask the council for help. How amusing. Stopped walking, stopped beside him. Please move, said quietly. We need to return to our ship. The scaled alien made a rumbling sound in its chest. What's the hurry? Your world will still be dying when you get back. A few more minutes won't matter. His hand moved toward her hip, where her weapon should have been. But they had been required to leave their weapons on the ship. Her hand found only empty air. The alien noticed. It laughed. You see, this is why your species will fail. You are aggressive, violent. You think with your fists instead of your minds. The galaxy is better off without creatures like you. Put a hand on his arm. She was shaking, not with fear but with anger. You may be right, said to the alien. His voice was still calm, still steady. Perhaps the galaxy would be better without us, but we are not gone yet, and while we live we will fight. That is what humans do. He stepped around the alien and continued walking. After a moment, followed. The scaled alien watched them go. Something flickered in its yellow eyes. Confusion, maybe. It was not used to being ignored. They reached their ship without further incident. It was a small vessel, ugly compared to the sleek craft that filled the station's docks. It was painted gray and black, with patches where damage had been repaired too quickly to care about appearance. The name painted on its side was simple: Hope. A human joke, perhaps, or a prayer. The airlock opened and they stepped inside. The familiar smell of recycled air and metal greeted them. It smelled like home. A young man was waiting for them in the cockpit. His name was Jin, and he was their pilot. He was only 25 years old, with quick hands and quicker eyes. When he saw their faces, he knew. They said no, he said. It was not a question. They laughed, replied. Her voice was flat, empty. Jin was quiet for a moment. Then he turned back to his controls. I'll get us out of here, he said, Course for Earth. Shook his head. Not yet. Take us to the observation deck first. I want to look at the station one more time. Jin did not ask why. He simply flew the ship away from the dock and brought it around to face the massive structure. Stood at the viewing window and looked at the Galactic Council station. It was still beautiful, still impressive. Thousands of lights twinkled on its surface like stars. Ships came and went like bees around a hive. This place represented everything humanity had dreamed of when they first looked up at the night sky. The wonders of the universe, the promise of other life, the hope that they were not alone. Now that dream tasted like ashes in his mouth. They think we're nothing, said. She had come to stand beside him. They think we'll just die quietly and disappear. Yes, agreed. Are they right? Was silent for a long time. He watched a massive ship, bigger than any city on Earth, glide past the station. He watched smaller vessels dart around it like fish around a whale. When I was a boy, he said finally, my grandfather told me a story. He said that long ago our people faced enemies that were stronger than us, bigger than us, better armed. Everyone thought we would lose. Everyone thought we would be conquered and forgotten. He turned to look at. But we didn't lose, we fought. We bled, we died, and in the end we survived. Not because we were stronger, not because we were smarter, but because we refused to give up. Because giving up is not something humans know how to do. His eyes were bright with unshed tears, and now looked back at the station one last time, then he turned away. Now we go home, we tell our people what happened here, and then we show this galaxy what humans are made of. He walked toward the cockpit. Jin, he said, set course for Earth, maximum speed. The young pilot nodded and began entering commands. Behind them, the Galactic Council station grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. Inside its halls, the aliens had already forgotten about the two small humans who had come begging for help. That was their mistake. Because had spoken the truth. Humans did not know how to give up. They never had, and in the dark days ahead, the galaxy would learn just how dangerous that simple fact could be. The ship called Hope disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying its crew back toward a world that was fighting for its life. And nothing would ever be the same. The news reached Earth before ship did. Faster-than-light communications carried the message across the void in seconds. By the time Hope entered the solar system, everyone knew what had happened. The Council had laughed. The Council had refused. Humanity was alone. In cities across the planet, people gathered around screens to watch the footage. Someone on the station had recorded the meeting and sent it to human networks. Perhaps they thought it was funny. Perhaps they wanted to show the galaxy how foolish these little creatures from Earth had been. Instead, it showed something else. It showed Ambassador standing tall before beings that could destroy his world with a thought. It showed Commander refusing to look away, even as hundreds of aliens mocked them. It showed two humans walking out of that chamber with their heads held high, not begging, not crying, not breaking. The aliens had meant to shame humanity. They had done the opposite. General Han watched the footage in his command center deep beneath the mountains of Korea. He was an old soldier, 67 years old, with scars on his body and medals on his chest. He had fought in 3 wars before the swarm came. Now he was fighting his 4th. When the footage ended, he turned to face his officers. "You saw that," he said. His voice was rough like gravel. "You saw what they think of us. They think we are weak. They think we will roll over and die." He slammed his fist on the table. "They are wrong. We have been fighting alone since the beginning. We will keep fighting alone until the end, and that end will not come until we decide it." His officers straightened their backs. Fire burned in their eyes. "Yes, sir," they said as one. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Military bases, government buildings, homes, and shelters. People watched the footage and felt something change inside them. The fear was still there. The despair was still there, but something else was growing too. Anger, pride, determination. If the galaxy wanted to watch humanity die, then humanity would give them a show they would never forget. Admiral was 49 years old. She commanded what was left of Earth's space fleet from a station orbiting the moon. Her ships were battered. Her crews were exhausted. They had been fighting for 3 years with no rest and no reinforcements. When she saw the footage, she laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had expected nothing and received even less. It was the laugh of someone who had stopped hoping for miracles and started making their own. "Ma'am," her aide asked nervously, "are you all right?" Wiped her eyes and turned to face the young woman. Her name was, and she was barely 23, too young to remember a time before the war, too young to know what peace felt like. "I'm fine," said, "better than fine. I was worried, you know, worried that would make some deal with them, worried that we would have to share our victory with people who refused to help us." Looked confused. "Victory, ma'am, the swarm is still coming, we've lost half our fleet, how can you talk about victory?" Put a hand on the young woman's shoulder. "Because I know something the council doesn't," she said. "I know what humans are capable of when their backs are against the wall. I know what we become when there is no one left to save us. We become monsters, monsters that eat other monsters." She turned to look out the window at the stars. "The swarm thinks they are the hunters. They have no idea that they just became the prey." On Earth, ship finally landed. He stepped out onto the tarmac of a military base and was immediately surrounded by cameras and reporters. Questions flew at him from every direction. "Ambassador, how do you feel about the Council's decision? What will humanity do now? Is there any hope left?" Raised his hand and the crowd fell silent. He was still wearing the same suit he had worn to the Council. It was wrinkled now. There were dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. But his voice was strong when he spoke. "I went to the Council to ask for help," he said. "I went as a beggar, hat in hand, hoping that the great powers of the galaxy would show mercy to our small species." He paused. "They laughed at us. They called us children. They said we were too weak to survive." Another pause, longer this time. "They were wrong." The cameras captured every word. Billions of people watched and listened. "Humanity has been alone since we first looked up at the stars. We climbed out of the mud with no one's help. We learned to make fire, to build cities, to cross oceans and continents. We went to the moon because we refused to accept limits. We reached for the stars because we refused to accept that we were small." His voice grew stronger. "The Council thinks our short lives make us weak. They are wrong. Our short lives make us urgent. We do not have time to wait for others to save us. We do not have time to be patient. We must act. We must fight. We must win." He looked directly into the nearest camera. "To the void swarm, I say this. You made a mistake when you attacked us. You thought we would be easy prey. You thought we would scatter and run. You were wrong. We are coming for you, not in 1,000 years, not in 100, now, today, with everything we have." He took a breath. "And to the Galactic Council, I say this. Remember this moment. Remember how you laughed. Remember how you turned your backs on beings who asked only for a chance to survive. Because one day you will need help. One day someone will threaten your worlds and your peoples. And when that day comes, you will look to the stars for allies." His eyes were cold now, cold as the void itself. "And you will find only silence, the same silence you gave us." The broadcast ended. The screen went dark. In homes and shelters and ships across human space, people sat in silence of their own. Some cried. Some prayed. Some simply held their loved ones close and waited. Then slowly, something began to change. Factories that had been working double shifts began working triple. Scientists who had been sleeping 4 hours a night stopped sleeping at all. Soldiers who had been ready to give up found new reasons to keep going. The silence from the galaxy was complete. No help would come. No allies would appear. There would be no miracles and no last-minute rescues. Good. Humanity had never needed miracles anyway. They made their own. In the weeks that followed, Earth transformed. Every resource was devoted to the war effort. Every mind was bent toward survival. Old arguments and divisions were forgotten. Nations that had been enemies for centuries stood shoulder to shoulder. The Void Swarm was coming. They had destroyed 1,000 worlds before this one. They had never been defeated, never been stopped, never even been slowed. But they had never faced humans before. And that, as the galaxy would soon learn, made all the difference. In her office on the moon, Admiral looked at the latest reports. The swarm was 1 month away. Their numbers were vast. Their power was terrible. She smiled. "Come on then," she whispered to the darkness between the stars. "Come and see what we're made of." The silence of the galaxy pressed in around her. But Earth was no longer listening. The first battle happened near Jupiter. Admiral had positioned her fleet in the shadow of the giant planet, hiding among its many moons. The swarm came through the outer system like a dark cloud, thousands of ships blotting out the stars. They moved with terrible purpose, heading straight for Earth. They did not expect resistance. The species they hunted always ran, always hid, always waited to die. Humans did none of these things. "All ships," said into her communicator. Her voice was calm, steady. "This is Admiral, you know why we're here, you know what we're facing. The galaxy thinks we can't win this fight. Today we prove them wrong. Attack." The human fleet erupted from hiding like wolves from the forest. The swarm had never seen anything like it. These tiny ships, these primitive vessels, should have been easy targets. Instead, they fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness. Human pilots flew straight into enemy formations, weaving between massive swarm cruisers, firing every weapon they had. Many died in the first minutes. Their ships exploded like bright flowers against the black of space. But for every human ship that fell, 3 swarm vessels went with it. Captain was 28 years old. She flew a small fighter craft, barely bigger than a shuttle. Her ship was called Arrow, and she had painted a small bird on its nose because it reminded her of her home. Today she flew into the mouth of hell and did not flinch. "Enemy carrier on my 6, she called into her radio. "I'm going for its engine core." "No," her wingman shouted. "You'll never make it out." "Then make sure it counts," she replied. She pushed her throttle forward and dove toward the swarm carrier. It was massive, as big as a city, covered in dark metal and strange organic shapes. Smaller swarm fighters tried to stop her. She dodged them, spiraling through space like a leaf in a storm. The carrier's engine core was unprotected. The swarm had never needed to protect it before. No prey had ever gotten this close. Fired everything she had. The explosion lit up the darkness. The carrier broke apart, its pieces spinning off into the void. Thousands of smaller swarm vessels lost power and went dark, their connection to the hive mind severed. Ship tumbled through the debris, alarms screamed. Fire burned in her cockpit, but she was laughing. "Got you," she whispered. Her rescue beacon activated as her eyes closed. On the flagship watched the battle unfold. Her face was pale, but her eyes were bright. They were losing ships, too many ships, but they were also winning. The swarm was confused. Their hive mind could not understand what was happening. Prey was not supposed to fight like this. Prey was supposed to flee or surrender. These humans did neither. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," her tactical officer reported. "They're retreating toward the asteroid belt." Nodded slowly. "Don't pursue, hold position and recover our wounded." "Ma'am, we could press the attack." "No," said. We won this battle, but the war is not over. We need every ship and every pilot for what comes next." She looked at the tactical display. Red dots showing swarm positions were pulling back, regrouping. They would come again. They always did. But today, for the first time in 10,000 years, the Void Swarm had learned what it felt like to lose. The months that followed were brutal. General Han led the ground forces on Mars, where the swarm had established a foothold. The fighting was close and bloody. Human soldiers faced creatures from nightmares, things with too many legs and too many teeth. They fought in tunnels and craters and the ruins of cities that had once been full of life. Han was at the front lines every day. He was too old for this, his officers said. He should be commanding from a bunker somewhere safe. He refused. "If I ask my soldiers to die," he said, "then I will die beside them." His soldiers loved him for it. They followed him into battles that should have killed them all. Somehow, impossibly, they kept winning. On Earth, the factories never stopped. New ships were built in weeks instead of months. New weapons were invented in days. Scientists worked until they collapsed, then woke up and worked more. A young engineer named discovered that the swarm's communication signal could be disrupted with a specific frequency. Within hours, devices were being mass-produced. Within days, swarm forces across the system were losing coordination, their hive mind fragmenting. The tide was turning. In the council station, far from the war, aliens watched in disbelief. "This is impossible," the feathered delegate said. Its voice was shrill with confusion. "The swarm has destroyed 10,000 civilizations. How can these humans be winning?" The scaled alien who had blocked path said nothing. It remembered the humans' eyes, the calm certainty in them. It was starting to understand something it did not want to understand. The high speaker sat on its throne and watched the reports with all 6 eyes. "They are not winning," it said slowly. "They are simply refusing to lose. There is a difference." "What difference?" someone asked. The high speaker did not answer. On the surface of Europa, the final battle began. The swarm queen had established her nest there, deep beneath the ice. She was ancient and vast, a consciousness that had consumed countless worlds. She could not understand why her children were failing. She could not understand why this small, weak, short-lived species would not simply die. Admiral led the assault personally. Her ship had been damaged in a dozen battles. Half her crew was new, replacements for those who had fallen. She had not slept in 3 days. None of that mattered. "All forces, this is Admiral, the Queen is beneath us. If we kill her, the swarm dies with her. This is everything we've been fighting for, every sacrifice, every death, every tear. It all comes down to this moment." She paused. "Make it count." The attack was savage. Human ships crashed through swarm defenses like fists through paper. Soldiers poured onto the surface, fighting their way toward the nest entrance. Jin, the young pilot who had brought home from the council, flew cover for the ground troops. His ship was hit twice, but he kept flying. General Han led his soldiers into the ice tunnels. They fought in darkness and cold, surrounded by horrors. Men and women fell around him. He kept moving forward. Finally, they reached the Queen's chamber. She was enormous. Her body filled the cavern, a mountain of flesh and chitin and ancient malice, her many eyes fixed on Han and his surviving soldiers. For a moment, no one moved. Then Han raised his weapon. "You should have stayed away from our home," he said. The Queen screamed. Her children came pouring out of the walls, ready to defend her. Han smiled. "Fire." The explosion that followed was visible from space. Europa's surface cracked and split as the nest collapsed. The Queen's death cry echoed through the swarm's hive mind, and across the solar system, swarm vessels went dark. In orbit, Admiral watched through tear-filled eyes. "Sir," asked quietly, "did we win?" Nodded slowly. Yes, she said, we won. 18 months. That was how long it had taken. 18 months of blood and fire and sacrifice. But humanity had done what 10,000 civilizations could not. They had destroyed the Void Swarm, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Void Swarm was dead. The Queen was gone. 10,000 years of terror had ended in 18 months, crushed by a species that most of the galaxy had never heard of. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had lived in fear of the swarm woke to find that fear gone. Some celebrated. Some wept with relief. Some simply sat in silence, unable to believe what they were hearing. Humanity had won. In the Galactic Council Station, the mood was different. The High Speaker sat on its throne, reading report after report. Its 6 eyes moved rapidly across the screens, taking in information that should have been impossible. How, it muttered, how did they do this? No one answered. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of machines. The feathered delegate was gone, having fled to its in shame. The scaled alien stood in a corner, its yellow eyes fixed on nothing. Others whispered among themselves, but no one spoke loudly. No one laughed. The ancient observer sat in its usual place and watched. It had seen this before. It had seen powerful beings suddenly realize that they had made a terrible mistake. It was never pleasant to watch. We should send envoys, someone finally said. We should reach out to the humans, congratulate them, offer friendship. The High Speaker made a sound that might have been a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Friendship, it repeated. They came to us begging for help and we laughed in their faces. Now you want to offer friendship. They cannot hold a grudge forever. They are a young species. Surely they understand that we were only following our laws, our customs. Do you remember what their ambassador said? The High Speaker asked. He said that when we needed help, we would find only silence. Do you think he was joking? No one answered. Send the envoys, the High Speaker finally said, but do not expect a warm welcome. 3 months after the war ended, a delegation from the Galactic Council arrived in human space. The ship was magnificent, a gleaming vessel of silver and gold, carrying representatives from 12 different species. They came with gifts and promises and carefully prepared speeches about galactic unity and shared futures. They were met by a single human cruiser. Commander stood on the bridge of that cruiser, watching the council ship approach. She was older now, her hair showing streaks of gray. The war had aged her. It had aged them all. Ma'am, her communications officer said, they're requesting permission to approach Earth. Was silent for a moment. Tell them they can proceed to Mars. They will be met there. Not Earth, ma'am. No, not Earth. The council delegation was confused but agreed. Their ship changed course toward Mars, the red planet that had been the site of some of the war's bloodiest fighting. The surface was still with craters and ruins, monuments to human sacrifice. They landed in what had once been a swarm-occupied city. Now it was a memorial, filled with statues and plaques bearing the names of the fallen. Thousands upon thousands of names, carved in stone so they would never be forgotten. Ambassador met them at the landing pad. He looked different than he had 3 years ago. His hair was fully gray now, his face more lined. But his back was still straight and his eyes were still clear. The lead envoy, a tall being made of crystal, stepped forward. Ambassador, it said, we come on behalf of the Galactic Council. We wish to extend our congratulations on your victory and our desire to establish friendly relations between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Listened without expression. We recognize that our initial response to your petition may have been premature, the envoy continued. We did not understand what humanity was capable of. We hope that the past can be forgotten and that we can move forward together. Remained silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Do you see these statues?" he asked, gesturing at the memorial around them. "Each one represents someone who died because you laughed at us. Each name on these walls is someone who would still be alive if you had helped." The envoy shifted uncomfortably. "War has casualties. This is understood." "Understood," repeated. "Yes, we understand very well." He looked at each member of the delegation in turn. "3 years ago I stood before your council and asked for help. Not for conquest, not for power, just for a chance to survive. And you laughed. You called us children. You said we were too weak to deserve help." His voice was calm but cold, so cold. "We did not argue, we did not beg, we simply left. And then we did what you said was impossible. We survived. We won. Alone." The envoy tried to speak, but raised a hand. "You want friendship now. You want alliance. Why? Because we have proven ourselves. Because we are strong enough to be worth your attention." He shook his head slowly. "That is not friendship, that is convenience." "Ambassador, please," the envoy said. "The council recognizes its error. We wish to make amends." "Make amends?" Almost smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "How? Can you bring back the dead? Can you undo the suffering? Can you take back the laughter?" "Silence." "I will tell you what humanity will do," said. "We will continue to grow. We will continue to explore. We will build ships and stations and colonies. We will spread across this galaxy and no one will stop us." He stepped closer to the envoy. "But we will not be your friends. We will not be your allies. We will not join your council or follow your laws. When you need help, we will remember how you helped us. When you are threatened, we will remember how you watched us face destruction alone." The crystal envoy's light dimmed slightly. "You would condemn us for our ancestors' choices." "Your ancestors," laughed bitterly. "You were there. You sat in that chamber and watched us beg. Some of you laughed with the rest. Do not pretend this is ancient history. The scars are still fresh." He turned away from them. "Go back to your council. Tell them that humanity has heard their offer. Tell them that we decline. We want nothing from beings who abandon children when they cry for help." "And if we are threatened," the envoy asked, "if something like the swarm comes again?" Stopped walking, he did not turn around. "Then you will face it alone," he said, "just as we did." He continued walking toward the memorial. The delegation watched him go, unable to find words. Above them, the stars wheeled in their endless dance. Somewhere out there, human ships were already exploring new systems, new worlds, new possibilities. A species that had once begged for help was now answering to no one. The envoys returned to their ship in silence. They would report back to the council. They would describe what they had seen and heard. And the council would understand, finally, what they had created. Not an enemy. Humans had no interest in war with beings who had never attacked them. Something worse. A species that no longer cared. A civilization that looked at the great powers of the galaxy and felt nothing. No hate, no fear, no respect. Just silence. The same silence they had given. And that silence would echo through the stars for generations to come. A reminder that some mistakes cannot be undone, and some wounds never heal. Stood alone in the memorial, surrounded by the names of the fallen. He closed his eyes and listened to the wind. "We made it," he whispered to the dead. "We survived." Above him, the stars continued to shine. And humanity continued to rise.